everyone, this is Yeri. Welcome to episode 5 of Arcane Threads, interweaving philosophy, astrology, and ancient wisdom, and in this case today, modern-day wisdom as well. Today's guest, musician and researcher Jon Darkly, is here with me to share some of the material from his upcoming book, Techno-Communism. Welcome to the show, Jon. There is so much to talk about right now that's relevant to your work. Where do we even begin?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. It's a great show. Indeed, even today, at the time of this recording, Charlie Kirk has been assassinated in Utah. It just happened. He was a conservative speaker. He was doing all these talks on campuses and stuff, and he was an advocate for free speech. And I don't agree with everything he said, but that's rare anyway. But being that he was pro free speech, he got shot in the throat, which is very interesting. And well, not interesting. It's sad. It's really it's disgusting, really. But talk about censorship, because he was killed for an opinion, essentially, and so those are the times we're living in right now. So this just happened, and I'm not sure about all the details yet, but I want to just say rest in peace, and also wishing all the just love and my condolences to the wife and the kids and the family and everyone affected.
I'm looking at his chart now, and I do look at death charts to see what could be significant that could bring something like this about so suddenly. And today, at the time of his death, the sun was conjunct the south node, 18 degrees of Virgo. And according to the astrologer Nikola Stojanovic, that is the evil degree, 18 degrees of any sign. And that was trine to his Uranus-Neptune, 18 degrees of Capricorn. Plus, the moon was opposite Mars, and Mars was right on his sun. And the censorship thing and it being right on his throat, how symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't agree with his opinions and statements, it's still tragic.
And it's across the spectrum. If this would have happened to someone else on the opposite side, that would have been just as awful and bad. And this is and I've seen people react to it from, I guess, both sides, and the opposing side is, I wouldn't say. Well, some of them actually are celebrating it, which is disgusting by itself. So, but this should not be able to, this shouldn't happen. Not in these modern times. But then again, there's a reason why this is happening, and we can definitely go into that too. But it's.
Now come to find out that on the very same day, maybe an hour or two after Charlie was shot, there was a high school shooting in Colorado.
Yeah, and that's going to be used against the people as well. The talks of gun control and
Definitely.
where we have to ban guns, and it's an ongoing problem. And you Republicans, you won't ever take this seriously, and how many more deaths and stuff. So, and then surrounding Charlie's death, there might be people now just trying to examine the footage, and it's going to be more talk about Psyops or false flags. It's always the same thing that's happening. So all of these things are going to be used for a certain agenda.
And also how amazing that it seems to happen a lot around this time of year. It is eclipse season. There's a lot of tension and anxiety in the air, and there have been several tragic events recently. There was also that stabbing.
Mm-hmm.
That was on August 22nd?
I believe so.
And I don't know exactly how to pronounce her name, Irina
Zarutska?
Yes, and that was in North Carolina bus. And, I know this isn't directly related to today's content, but it is in a way that I'd like to point out, if I may.
Yeah, it needs to be said, so that's really good. Yep, I don't mind.
Yeah, and I also did look up her chart too, because again, I had to, as an astrologer, kind of figure out what was going on here. And it does merit a whole talk of its own. But it could be said, looking at this chart, I don't know exactly what time she was born. She was born under a unfortunate star with some heavy placements. But on that day, the Uranus, the planet of shock, sudden reversals, and in this case, sudden violence and death, was exactly on her sun, 1 degree of Gemini. The sun just into Virgo, squaring her sun. Mars transiting her moon in Libra. And the moon, late degrees Leo, was exactly opposite Irina's natal Uranus. This is incredible and tragic timing. And, all I have to say about how this indirectly ties into your content today is that people are being spied on, interrogated for things like whether or not they choose to get vaccinated or incarcerated for political beliefs. But where's the AI surveillance when these subhumans are committing the 14th crime? And rumors were going around that the whole story was supposedly going to be deleted from Wikipedia due to people trying to censor it.
Right.
And there's one more thing I just have to say. She was born on May 22nd, 2002, and also according to Nikola Stojanovic, 22 is the murder degree and number, also August 22nd. So there were two 22s. I'm not saying that everyone who has a 22 in their chart or birth date is going to experience murder, but it's just really uncanny.
Oh wow! So yeah, it's 2002. That's 22, and there's May 22nd, which is 22. That's
very... 3 22s.
And so that would make her what, 23 or 22 years old? Oh, 23 then. Yeah, if my math's correct. Yeah, that's way too young anyway. It's and also, if I may add, the motives for this killing. It's said it's unclear, even though the guy said, "I got that white girl." So I guess you can say it's a racially motivated crime, but the fact that it didn't get, the attention it deserves, that's because the races are reversed. So that's unfortunately, it's uncomfortable to talk about race and politics nowadays, but it's not a new thing. It's just more in the forefront, and people are being censored for talking about that too. And that's why people like Charlie Kirk will be assassinated.
Exactly. Now there's one more killing that I'd like to mention briefly, because it also happened very recently. And all of these, by the way, have occurred during this eclipse portal that we are currently in. So this happened August 27th. That was the Minneapolis shooting. And that was, I believe, at a church. But then right after, you hear all about this Gideon AI, Aaron Cohen, IDF Special Operations veteran, who comes out with this, threat detection platform to help eliminate these sorts of scenarios. And he was already working on this, but it's like, oh yes, what a great opportunity. Problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah.
And can you say something about Gideon?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, if only we had that technology when the other murder happened, that would have been, because they're all about predictive policing, which is like the movie, what's it called, the Minority Report, where people are being jailed for a pre-crime, like a crime you haven't done yet. So Gideon is one of those newest, IDF Israeli spy tech operations. Again, it's a biblical name. He was the leader of, Gideon was supposedly the leader of the Israelites. He was, I think, attributed to the conquering of the Midians, which is another sect or a tribe, which they were at war with. So everything is becoming a little bit biblical. We can go into
Very
that as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What prompted you to write this book to begin with? And when did it start for you?
Well, I guess the red pilling started around 2007. I was around 19 or 18 or 19, between 18 and 20, I guess. I didn't really try to find out things like these, because I was just a normal kid, I guess. I mean, not obviously not really normal, but I first started looking into things like the Mayan calendar, ancient aliens, David Icke and Alex Jones, fake moon landings, JFK, 9/11,
Sure.
all that stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad, because these are all puzzle pieces, of a greater picture. And and then I found myself to be in a spot where, for a year or so, I just had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. Actually, I emotionally couldn't take it anymore, because of all the red pilling that was being done. Because I was young. I was a young adult, and I have my whole life in front of me. What am I doing with my life? Finding the truth and stuff. It's ridiculous, according to a lot of people. So I took a break, I guess, and then reality just kicks in. It's like, well, that doesn't mean that these things are not happening, and I'm sure that a lot of people can find themselves, they can recognize what I'm saying, because you don't want that to be true. You don't want to live in a world where there is a cabal of some sorts that are either satanic or anti-human, or both, whatever, or they're aliens or monsters. That's not a reality I want to live in, but apparently we might be. So why do I have to lose? So I would rather just know the truth than to live a lie. And ever since I haven't really stopped researching, and then the reason for this Techno-Communism talk, or book rather, that I'm writing, is because I feel like it's like a culmination of everything that I've been researching, overlaid with what's right in front of us, or me, or the world. This is literally happening. And so that's basically, it's just a continuation of my, I guess, 18-year research.
It's understandable that you would have backed out a little bit in the beginning, because it's heavy.
Yeah.
It is. But why do you think it's important for more people to know about this? I do think more people are coming to this awareness thanks to the internet, which is a double-edged sword. It seems like, due to the internet and our current access to this information that was hidden from previous generations, we have some choices that those who came before us did not, but it still can be very intimidating. So I guess my question, in short, is why should people know this? That means that maybe there's something they can do about it.
Yeah, I'm not a believer of it's a done deal and we're dead. We lost. Even though sometimes it might feel like we're up against a force that's really way bigger than us. But when you think about it, if we're talking about a cabal or an elite, that literally is just a fraction of the human population, but they are more organized. That's the thing that the common person is not. It's not. They don't have. We generally don't have our lives in order. It's everything is at the whim of some other force above you, which is becoming more apparent. And I think the reason why people should know about this, and when I say this, it's the worldwide conspiracy, I guess. I guess it's an international class war. I could have called it techno-politics because it's just across the spectrum. But when when you look into the history of communism, it's been tried several times in different countries. So you could say it's an international thing, and that's another really deep topic. But international communism was seen as a threat in the 50s, even still, when the Bilderberg meetings were still held, and that was an actual topic on their list. The Bilderberg, that's like a, I wouldn't say low-hanging fruit to look into, but it's an easy conspiracy theory to look into, and then you find out, oh, it's not a theory, it's a fact. That's the Bilderberg group. It's a bunch of wealthy people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of easy to poke at and look at, that would be Bill Gates, right? So a lot of people hate his guts, and there are a lot of conspiracies around Bill Gates and his creations, and so now his next gimmick is this, supposed end of the smartphone era and the beginning of the nanotech-laced Internet of Bodies, the skin circuits to invisibly record your vax history.
Right.
What do you have to say about that and anything that he's done and introduced?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this guy is, it's in 2020 during the whole COVID thing, Microsoft put out a patent. It's the name is, or the code, I guess it's 2020-666, something like that. It's the year 2020, and there's a bunch of numbers, 666. So basically, what that is, it's
you can't make this stuff up.
No, but they did, and the patent is for a technology to somehow link like wearable technology. So think of an implant or whatever that allows you to do transactions in cryptocurrency for just like paying for stuff. But you can only do that when you are, I would assume, injected with this wearable technology, or the Internet of Bodies, would that be? So that was during COVID, when there were, COVID was such a trip. It was everything, that people have been talking about in the conspiracy circles. Everything came true, and they were slinging patents left and right. They were experimenting with really intrusive technology to kind of monitor. So yeah, Bill Gates, he's also buying up all this farmland in Arizona and different areas. Why would a software engineer do that? Well, when you think of his track record recently, or as of late, I guess, his obsession with technology and control, and the fact that he's a billionaire, he can fund all these things, and the fact that Microsoft in 2020 came out with that patent is like it made people aware of, maybe we shouldn't trust the guy who wants to literally block out the sun. That's yeah.
And who wants to put this junk on the stuff called apeel on the fruit now.
Right.
Even when it's supposed to be organic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw something in the news the other day that reminded me of something we talked about quite a few years ago on a podcast. It said there was a startup behind a $700 a month bed pod share, and they want to put 10,000 more in San Francisco. And remember when we were talking about that pod share in LA, California? Speaking of communism, this isn't about technology per se, but just think about the ramifications of this setup.
Yeah, the original, so the pod share concept is actually technology driven, because their own slogan is access, not ownership, and they want to do away with privacy. This is not I'm not making this up. It's literally that's their mission. It's the abolishment of privacy and ownership, I guess, in that sense. So when it comes to PodShare, Elvina Beck, the CEO, even her own father said, "This is not going to work out. No one wants." No one wants to live in a pod without any doors or curtains. And then she was like,
who would pay for this?
Oh, so many people are paying for it. And I get what she's, this is me again. I'm just also trying to look at it from their point of view, how it would make sense from their point of view. Is like they want to address the housing situation in California, which is pretty messed up, but that's not, that's a different.
This would make sense to house the homeless or
right.
a temporary pit stop overnight like they have in Japan, something similar to that I heard about. But this takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah, but because you're literally being put into a computer program, which is very much like a social credit system, like what China has, because you can actually earn and lose points. For example, when you snore or when you're being too loud or whatever, or that's Chinese level control, and this is what this company PodShare is doing. So it's becoming a more popular idea, I guess, to not have privacy, which is another thing we can get into, but overall, I see an acceptance of the resurgence of a communistic mindset. And one example is from artist Grimes. She's Elon Musk's, I guess, ex-wife or girlfriend, whatever she is. Again, nothing against her, because I even like some of her songs. So, again, this is the difference between challenging a belief and attacking a person, because I will never do ad hominem attacks, because it's not about the person, it's about what they believe. And still, I believe in debates and coming to an understanding of where people are coming from. It's like almost like being back in ancient Greece, be just having a philosophical talk. But Grimes, she made this TikTok video a while ago, and if you don't mind, I'll quote what she said. And she said within 60 seconds, she basically summarized my book without knowing. So that's funny. So she said, quote, "I have a proposition for the communists. Typically, most of the communists I know are not big fans of AI. But if you think about it, AI is actually the fastest path to communism. So if implemented correctly, AI could actually theoretically solve for abundance. Like, we could totally get into a situation where nobody has to work, everybody is provided for with a comfortable state of being, comfortable living. AI could automate all the farming, weed out systematic corruption, thereby bringing us to, as close as possible, to genuine equality." And then she ends on, "Because let's be real, enforced farming is really not a vibe." Well, I'm saying, well, I think enforced farming is probably the least of your worries in this day and age, because we can just grow our own food, whatever. But
they're trying to make farming harder as well now.
Yeah, they are.
With Agenda 2030.
Yeah, and also about the farming and growing your own food. Being what do you call it, self-sustainable, is not something that's being taught to kids either. Because even in some states, I believe in the U.S., you can grow your own food, but to a certain extent because of certain laws. The right to garden, that's another thing that you have to think about that too. Like well, we need our gardens, we need our, that's, I get it, but even like I think a decade ago, or actually longer than that, it was during the Obama times, I think capturing rainwater was frowned upon or in the process of being made illegal. So, yeah.
Crazy. So we talked a little bit about surveillance earlier. We didn't go in depth. I thought of Palantir, which you spoke about in your book. Is there anything you could share with us now?
Palantir is another AI-driven data mining project by Peter Thiel. And I've actually researched this company years ago, and now all of a sudden everyone's talking about it as if it's a new thing, but it's really not a new thing. Because what a lot of people also don't know is there's another project under Palantir called Tiberius, which is named after another Roman emperor, known for being like a arrogant, debauched person. But
wow.
It's all about the implementation of AI, data mining, and quite frankly, just spying, essentially. And Tiberius, in my opinion, is a little bit more interesting than Palantir itself. And because Tiberius was actually created, I think, during COVID, so that they can track the distribution of the vaccine.
Oh.
So essentially, tracking either who's taken the vaccine, where it's being where it's been handed out, I guess. Who the sellers are, and that's really. So again, COVID was like almost like a reason for them to just go all out and just throw everything at us and see what sticks. And so that's another way for them to implement the algocracy, which is basically a society driven by AI. And I'm sure you're interested in that word, algocracy, because of Algol, the fixed star, the star of evil or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, that's the most maligned star in the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell people what Palantir is named after?
Palantir is named after the seeing stones of the Lord of the Rings. Basically, when you take seeing stones and Palantir and what they're doing, it just spells out spying. That's all it does. It's another one of those companies, just like the NSA, which I have a few things to say about too, if you don't mind. I'm not sure if this is the right time for it.
No, it is. Although I wanted to make one more comment, if I may, about Peter Thiel.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about him selling out his 4-part lecture series on the Antichrist?
Well, that's
coming up real soon here.
That's very nice of him. By the way, he's not to be confused with Peter Steele from Typo Negative, but that's another story.
That would actually be cool.
Yeah, I mean, if only he was here. And that's probably another podcast. But I mean, Peter Thiel was very involved in the Trump administration, I believe, also the last time Trump was in. But yeah, that's just these companies. I feel that's the algocracy, because a lot of people think that the president is in charge of the country, but someone had to put them there,
Mm-hmm.
So it's the companies and the banks and everything. But I've made a discovery the past few years, which I don't see a lot of people talk about in regards to this topic and what really is controlling or steering that. And I'm not sure if you want to go into that.
Please do. Absolutely.
When people talk about spying and everything, people always talk about the NSA, which is a very valid point, obviously, the National Security Agency, but I think it's the National Spying Agency, but and it's not even my opinion. It's literally what they're doing, because their headquarters, I believe, is 611 Folsom Street in San Francisco, and what a lot of people might not know, that in that building is a separate room called Room 641A, which is basically, it's someone in that room who is working with AT&T to engage in legal spying of every citizen. And there have been 50 lawsuits against them because Mark Klein in 2006, he exposed all of this, and no one even knew about Room 641A. So the fact that NSA has a secret thing within itself is pretty interesting. And then another thing, when it comes to the NSA, there is another building in Lower Manhattan, on 33 Thomas Street, which is a very interesting number.
Interesting number, yeah.
Another NSA slash AT&T cooperation where they are engaging in spying. And this is all since the Patriot Act, since 9/11, when the war on terror and everything, and that gave them the reason to spy on everyone and collect their data. And no one at the time knew why they would do such a thing, because a lot of people would say, well, there's nothing to hide. I mean, what do you want to know? My bank account? There's nothing in there. So what But now that it's like 20 plus years later, we see what they're working towards, and it's a completely controlled AI structured society where science fiction movies are actually basically they're just telling us the truth. So that's essentially what I see is happening.
Very interesting. Can you share a little bit more about these biblical references in relation to the technology that's used in, underhanded ways?
Yeah. So I'm not a religious person necessarily. One of my influences, I guess, is or my inspirations for his book probably is Tex Mars. He wrote books in a very religious sense, but conspiracy minded, I would say. But everything was written in the 90s, I believe, and back then the internet was barely a thing, and people probably wouldn't even understand what he was saying. The beast system and everything, and all the biblical stuff. So I do have to agree that we are living in some sort of end times, and being that we're talking about the communism stuff, known to be a godless ideology, there's a whole bunch of religious stuff happening. It's almost like they're using the revelations as a blueprint. Mm-hmm. One of these symbolic examples is Apple. The company Apple. Their first computer that they sold was priced at $666.66. And the logo is an apple with a bite out of it, but they wrote the word byte with a Y, so it's like a computer byte, like clever. So that's another thing. And then we can go into other stuff. Even Gideon is a biblical thing. Project Maven, which is a Pentagon-backed, another spying agency. Officially, they were named the Algorithmic Warfare Cross-Functional Team, but even its director said, that sounds a little weapony. That's a quote. He said, that sounds a little weapony. So they just called it Project Maven. What is Maven? Maven is another Hebrew word for expert or a connoisseur or to understand. So that's another biblical thing. And then there is Yahoo, a mostly Chinese organization. So Yahoo is a backronym instead of an acronym. It stands for yet another hierarchical organized oracle, Yahoo, but it's also a Hebrew word for God. And it's like, how many times do we have to look at this and say, well, they're mocking religion itself, or they're literally playing out revelations and stuff. But Yahoo was actually bought by a company named Verizon, which everyone probably knows about, a telecommunications company, for $5 billion, and then this data leak happened. This scandal happened where all the data of all the users were spread and made public. So you're not really safe in the cloud either.
Mm-hmm. I have to go back to that apple. Sorry. Yeah. Taking a bite out of the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Mm-hmm. And Google's slogan was "Don't be evil," but at some point they just they erased it. It's like, oh, let's be evil. So yeah, it only has to happen a few times where you're like, okay, I think this is a pattern. So
I would like to ask you, how do you do your research?
Well, I think researching nowadays, and when I say nowadays, I'm talking about maybe the last 5 years, with the rise of social media. People are very lazy, I guess. They have a short attention span, so researching comes in the form of 10-second clips of a snippet of a fraction of an excerpt. And that's certainly it's susceptible to being taken out of context. But how I've been doing it since 2007 is you just go to the source of things. For example, if a podcaster talks about something, I'm gonna look into that something, and then I'm gonna look who wrote that something, that topic, and I'm gonna look at their history. I'm gonna look at the origins of either the person or the company, and that's basically just I guess it's called deductive reasoning, or deductive researching is what I would call it, or apophatic research, to break down as much as you can to come to the core of things, without the fluff, without the opinions, without the viewpoints, without the sound bites, without the narratives. And this is the same thing as buying a Bible and you're only reading the preface or editor's notes. You're actually reading the thing itself. And when you go to the source, you can figure out their motives, and then everything makes sense, because a lot of these people and organizations, they have laid out their plans a long time ago. It's just times are different. We're more distracted, so it's harder to actually see. So this is something I've figured out, and I think I'm on the right track. We should be looking at the telecommunications companies if we want to understand the tech world order, as I would call it, a new world order driven by technology and AI, or the algocracy itself. So telecommunications companies such as AT&T, Verizon, Ericsson, Nokia, all these companies, they are all in the business of what's called warrantless surveillance, which is a euphemism for spying. So Tex Mars talked about Project Lucid, which in the 90s, or actually 80s, I believe, was like a computer system which he thought was the beast system, which it's like a big spying.
The mark of the beast.
Yeah, exactly. And when you talk about the mark of the beast, that's another biblical thing. But then when you take Bill Gates's or Microsoft rather, Microsoft's patent, was called W2020-060606. It's a bunch of sixes. That is all about tracking where you are and being able to pay only if you have, in this sense, I guess, the mark or the technology that you can wear inside of your body. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't, that just makes these, religious nuts seem very,
I remember watching movies about this kind of thing when I was a kid in Sunday school. It's surreal just to look around and see now that we are actually living in those times that I was warned about. But I have to let you and our listeners know, I have learned a lot personally from you through osmosis about how to do research. And so you've taught me more than you might realize. Is it okay if I share a bit about your natal chart?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so listen up. This is a person you want to learn from. Jon Darkly has Scorpio rising, Pluto conjunct the ascendant, in a square with the Sun and Mercury in Leo in the 9th house of higher learning, truth, and philosophy. So right away, this is a person who sees through the veil, who plumbs the depths, who is got a very strong built-in bullshit detector. So yeah, it's all right there in your chart, and I really appreciate how thorough you are and how non-biased you are, because I've noticed that a lot of people do speak too soon. They have a piece, but it's just even a portion of a piece, and then they're going out there telling everybody about it as if this is the gospel.
I've also learned from you a lot. It's I think this is what the I guess the combination of occult knowledge and political and historical research go hand in hand, because the one explains the other, or confirms the other, rather. Since I've been doing this since 2007, I've caught my own biases too, because that's confirmation bias. You want this thing to be true, so you're looking for sources that happen to agree with you, and then you form this narrative in your head, and that's when you speak out, and that's when you get all these gatekeepers on YouTube and wherever, because they want their narrative to be sold, I guess, and get the followers. And I've lost followers. I've lost, I guess, friends and family probably, and because truth is literally not for everyone. It's free for everyone, but not everyone wants it, and it's really hard to stay unbiased because you're fighting your own biases all the time. You like I said in the beginning, I essentially took the blue and the red pill at the same time, and things got weird. It's like that's when people become schizophrenic, probably, because they can't even make out what's going on anymore, and that's another subject of being in hyper reality. That's another thing that I'm writing about as it relates to the age we're in. People can't even tell what's real, especially with the AI generated stuff out there. Even with the shooting today of Charlie Kirk, I thought it was AI, because I've gotten so used to really, like seeing AI generated stuff, and that looks really real.
And then people went on to say, "Oh, it's a psyop," and that's a perfect example of.
Yeah, and there's a lot of psyops out there, obviously, but it just means a psychological operation, which means something is orchestrated in order to elicit a psychological response to it, so that they can manipulate and control behavior of the masses. And this is also a chapter in my book about population control, which is either you control the number of the population or you control the behavior of the population, but both is control. It comes out of this Malthusian school of thought, where the population growth is exponential, but the food cultivation, I guess, it's linear. So it's like overpopulation is bad, so we have to have less people and this and that. That's another subject, but that's another narrative, And then, but going back on topic. The way I'm researching is it starts in my mind, like, okay, so do I want the truth or do I want this thing to be true? Because I've had so many instances where I was wrong, and sometimes I was glad I was wrong, because that would be even worse. But the alternative. But so that's, I think, the main thing is to fight your own biases, and especially in the context of the communist history, I guess, which is a long, bloody one. A lot of people are saying, true communism hasn't been tried yet, but I'm thinking, well, how many times does it have to be tried? How much more bloodshed? How many victims do we need for you to say, well, maybe this is not a good idea? And even, the history of World War II and how that happened, that's another rabbit hole that I was very much opposed to in the beginning, to look into the alternative history of not just World War II, but I mean even before that, and like the old world stuff, the Tartaria stuff, all that stuff. So it's like we're being lied to left and right. And
yeah, I was going to say, isn't the
Yeah.
nature of communism, in addition to the abuse, to be gaslit, to be lied to? That's part of just messing with people's heads.
Yeah, and basically also silencing people, because a lot of people say, well, these, they're afraid of the Nazis coming back, but they're not here. The Nazis were fighting the communists, and the Nazis lost. They were just outnumbered, and we have the Allied forces with, including the UK and the US, and they were very anti-German, which is something, we've been told that they were fighting the good war, against Germany and stuff. So that's another rabbit hole, I guess. But the main driver was the communistic ideology, which is based on top-down control. Like Grimes even said, the collective farming, that's part of it, the forced famines and stuff. Basically spying and censorship, because all censorship, and I've said this before, all censorship results in self-censorship. So you're doing their work, which is, but what's happening now.
Mm-hmm. How is this affecting people's health as a whole? To live in these times with all of this surveillance, with foods that are less and less natural from depleted soils, and all of this pollution that the population is blamed for but groomed for.
Yeah, well, apart from the physical, health risks and damages of the food being tampered with, and the quality has gone down severely, and people getting sick left and right. That means that the food supply is being controlled, which ties directly into the Malthusian school of thought of, like I said earlier, the relationship between overpopulation and the amount of food available, especially how it affects the lower class. And this is named after I think Thomas or Robert Malthus, some English writer born in the 1760s, I believe. But now we also have the addition of radiation emitting devices, and for example 5G directed energy weapons, which is not a conspiracy theory. It's literally, there's a company called Kratos which is in a business of creating these directed energy weapons, which is essentially a heat gun, which is used for, against protesters, I guess. And the U.S. Army donated $29 million for that company to develop those weapons, which is radiation. It's basically a microwave. And then you have 5G, which is everywhere now, which is not even a productive technology.
It doesn't even do what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, because the promise was so much better than the outcome. I mean, it's, no one really cares about 5G. But then after 5 comes 6, so there's 6G, and there's a company called HexaX, which is really promoting 6G, because they're preparing us for the Internet of Bodies, which means you have to have faster, more reliable connection to the mainframe, I guess, whatever that might be. But
they basically want to turn everyone into cyborgs. This is the lead into transhumanism.
Well, that's what that is. It's like as soon as you wear technology into your skin, you are literally a cyborg. So HexaX is a company that works with 9 countries, and also the companies like Nokia, Ericsson. So basically the data companies, the telecommunications companies. Again, so that's like a recurring theme, and that's to kind of bring it back to your question earlier. The deductive reasoning, the deductive researching, you find patterns, and you see that you can see all these names pop up in different avenues, and you might want to just look into that, because what I've seen is we can look at we can get angry at the presidents or whatever, of the bankers. That's a very good start as well. But behind the scenes is where we should look, and there's this, you have to develop a certain eye for that too. So
right, and not just blame everything on the front men.
Right, because they're the front men. Because it's like a band. You're going to a concert, and all you do is focus on the singer, but there's 5 other people on stage, and who brought these people on stage is like a whole management company.
And then there are the people operating the lights.
Yeah, it's a whole show. It's a shit show. That's what it is.
Yeah. Was there anything that you wanted to go over? Any topics that you felt incomplete with, or that you wanted to elaborate on?
Yeah. So there's this whole religious theme that's going on. There's something called the World Peace Alliance, which is a non-profit organization. I mean, it's profit with FIT, not profit as like a profit, like a religious profit. This is a funny little thing, but it's a non-profit organization aiming to build a, quote, unified humanity under God. And I will quote what their mission statement is. It says, quote, "Just imagine the impossible things that we would do in this world if we could all cooperate a little bit more together. It's all about evolution, love that replaces ego, the cure of distrust and suspicion, the universal brotherhood and citizenship of people, the responsibility towards our planet, and the connection with the universal heavenly Father, which is God," end quote. And then they have a whole list of things that they're into, which they call the industry of the future, and it consists of the following: robotics, humanoids, virtual assistants and neurotech, Internet of autonomous systems and things, supercomputation and quantum artificial intelligence, laser holograms and augmented reality, blockchain and cryptocurrencies, 3D printing and origination of matter from energy, genome, bio, positron and nanotechnologies, fiber optics, quantum entanglement and neutrino communications, and then finally shape morphing and super materials. And I'm thinking, where's God exactly? Or
always in the name of God and love. When this couldn't be more ungodly and unholy. And
what's even funnier is that none other than Pope Francis serves as the actual moral guidance for this company. It's for this company, actually that's another company, I'm sorry, but that's the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, which is another non-profit company, quote, "making the world fairer, more inclusive and sustainable." And it says, "join a global movement with other leaders transforming our economies and society." So basically all that they're saying, and not just them, but all these, I guess, globalist companies and think tanks and stuff, they want to transform society. They want to basically put in this technology-driven system in a communistic sense, which, how else could you explain it other than techno-communism? And that's why I think this is an apt term, and not techno-fascism, not techno-conservatism, not techno-Nazism, not techno libertarianism, whatever. Or it's the communistic mindset that is underneath all of this stuff. And again, if Pope Francis himself is involved in this, then I don't know how.
That's a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
So you said that we're not doomed, but this is looking pretty grim.
Well, we're fucked, but not doomed. So,
there is a difference, folks.
Yeah, it's basically to undo that is going to be a process, just like the Fabian Society. They're their motto was to be patient and then finally strike hard at the right moment. And Fabianism was named after Fabian. He was a military leader, and he was known to stalk his opponents, I guess, and then strike hard as soon as they were distracted or whatever. So they're very patient, but they're very organized, and they're very goal-oriented. And I think the reason it feels like we're failing is because we're not organized, we're not patient because of our the lack of attention, or
this has been by design with all distractions, and also pitting people against each other, creating more divisions.
Yeah, and that's exactly how we're weakened as a modern society, because we don't have to get shot anymore necessarily. I mean, it still happens, unfortunately, but if we can just just imagine yourself in their shoes. You can think, if we can just make them do the work for us, basically imposing speech laws and censorship and
people policing each other.
Yeah, so that saves them all the work, and that's what we're doing. So they're patient and organized. We're distracted and lazy. So back in the early 2000s, when the internet was still a fairly free thing, that was like the golden age of researching, because that's how that's when I started, and I think a lot of us did as well. A lot of us, I guess, I mean, it's not just younger people, but older people as well. They were already on the internet in the early 2000s, and things were more free, I guess. And I guess in around 2013 or 14, the crackdown happened, on free speech. That's because they saw that this was a platform for truth and knowledge, and people were getting a little bit too knowledgeable and awake. And nowadays, what I see is a lot of people, they start an Instagram page or TikTok, whatever, and they copy other people's research, which is in itself not a bad thing, but then they capitalize on that. And then the danger of that is they can take a lot of things out of context, and then they become unknowing gatekeepers. And that's on a platform that's already heavily censored and gate-kept, I guess, by those developers. So the reason I think we're not doomed is because a lot of people can now detect when that's happening, and a lot of people they're finding alternatives to the big platforms, and they go to other sites like Rumble or BitChute even, and other stuff. So also what I think is coming back, and I'll just end on that, I guess, the talks like this, like one-on-one, in person talks, because you have no idea how many people might feel censored, and you have no idea how many people are eager to talk about this and feel kinship, because everyone's afraid of speaking out on the internet, but you can still talk freely so far in the real world, and that's where the actual world is happening. That's where life is. It's not on the internet anymore. It's in real life. So
right. And there are people, I wanted to add that there are also people who go on there, on these platforms, just to muddy the waters, to lead people to believe that they are shedding light on things, that they are so-called truthers. But if you look very closely, it's really a form of controlled opposition.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they don't start like that. They take Alex Jones, for example. He was one of he still is probably one of the most well-known researchers into all this stuff. And then something happened in 2015 or something. Like other people, they were being compromised, it seems. So suddenly they would change their entire
just like an about
view.
Face.
Yeah, it's like, that's a little suspicious. And then all the newer researchers, people like us, but newer people, they only know, for example, the Alex Jones of today, or I can name so many people, but I won't. But you know, it's people like him and others that have had a history of doing absolute groundbreaking stuff. You know, they actually researched new things and they brought to light a lot of stuff. Something happened, and then they will gatekeep the next generation, and that might not be intentional, but it's happening because the people themselves are doing it to themselves. They share stuff that's, you know, recently come out, and that makes these researchers look like a totally different person.
And we don't know if that's because of a threat or a bribe.
Yeah, and it's happening in politics. Ultimately, it's, you know, you're being selected if you're in politics. It's not like you're, you know, it's not like what people are saying. Oh, you can one day be a president. Well, did you go to Yale?
Like
did you go to Yale, or did you go to a certain, you know, or who's your father? You know,
right.
Is he an important guy or what? Because you just can't. And then the whole Freemasonic element to that as well. And it's like, it's not a coincidence. So it takes normal, average people to rise up. And I'm not talking about protesting on the street and just waving signs and everything, and just, you know, I hate this, I hate that, or shooting people in the throat. And that's not, you know, that's what they want. They want us to fight amongst each other, and that's happening right now. So what I'm advocating for is to go back to this Socratic way of conversation and philosophy, because ultimately I think it's about ideology versus philosophy, because a lot of people they talk in ideologies and narratives and headlines, and
forgetting that there's another human being in front of them.
Yeah, and it's all about philosophy. You have to love knowledge, and if you don't, then then you can fall into these traps of ideology.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing your knowledge with the listeners, and I hope we can continue on with this, because I know there's a lot more. And when can people expect your book to come out?
I'm aiming for next year, 2026. I'm actually writing. I'm always adding stuff because there's so much going on. It's a lot to keep up with. Because I wrote this I started writing in 2021, but that's 4.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So in that time, you know, so much has happened. So I have to end it at some point, and there might be a part 2, or I'm also planning to do a series on YouTube where I can just focus on several chapters. But ultimately, my book is, well, I'm planning for next year, essentially.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. Last but not least, how can people find your work online?
Well, I have a music page. It's jondarkly.bandcamp.com, and also on YouTube. It's instrumental music. It's metal and progressive and ambient stuff. Definitely planning on doing that again as well, and just kind of weaving together the music with my book, essentially. And so basically YouTube and Bandcamp.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you as well.
And thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please like, subscribe, and share with others that you think might be interested.